Hi,
Hello,
I'm Allison,
I'm Joe.
and this is Queer Cinema Catchup, the podcast where Joe and I catch up on one another's lives and queer cinema or queer adjacent things because, as you've heard many times before, we are long lost neighbors who made movies in the backyard, turned roommates living in LA, pursuing our Hollywood dreams. And oh yeah, we're both queer, and we didn't know it back then, but we know it now.
And here we are.
Today we're not going to talk about a movie.
No, we aren't.
We're going to talk about something that people are going to have a lot of feelings about. They might say it's wrong to speculate. They might find the entire topic, I was going to say disgusting. That seems awful.
Yeah, it does. Kind
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how is it disgusting? And then implying that queerness is disgusting. Okay. Anyway, we're going to talk about...
Well, recently in the news, and recently as in like 2 or 3 weeks ago,
maybe
this made headlines, but Allison had an idea to talk about this on the podcast. Before all that happened.
To be honest, I think I was a little naive in thinking if we talk about these things, there will be no backlash. But now I see that it's not the case. And so just being a little bit more wary of it is important.
It's kind of nice to have like both sides of it.
Yes.
Joni Mitchell, both sides now of the situation.
Great song.
Which, funny enough, ties into
the theme. Today we're going to talk about the conspiracy theory known as Gaylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Fan speculation that Taylor Swift
may be a closeted queer person.
I feel so proud.
The New York Times questioning the sexuality of someone like Taylor Swift, even though Taylor Swift has come out and said that she is a straight ally. That's what's led to a lot of criticism of the New York Times, including from some of the singer's associates.
We were talking about the Gaylor experience.
I don't want to keep secrets just to keep you. Basically, it's really going to involve me describing it to Joe because I know a lot about it.
Yeah. And I'm excited for it. I have some understanding of it, but not quite as much. Allison's doing a little more research than I have. She also is probably more interested in the subject than I am. But the funny thing is, between the two of us, Allison is much more of a Taylor Swift fan than I am. However, that's not to say that I'm not a Taylor Swift fan.
That was his number one Spotify artist, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. There have been many occasions now, which I'll try to think of them. There have been oftentimes us living in this roof. We've now lived together for 3 going on 4 years or 2
2.5 years.
Oh, wow. And there's been a few occasions where Taylor Swift has heavily been discussed between us.
True.
And mostly our love.
Deep love.
For
me.
Yeah. But then we always have the conversation, and I'm like, well, maybe I do love her more than I realize. I was there with Allison when she and I first listened to the album Midnights.
Amazing.
Not the 3 a.m. version. I did not stay up. Allison experienced that by herself.
But to be clear, it was 12 a.m. in California. I didn't stay up till 3 in the morning for a Taylor Swift album.
Yeah, but it'd be kind of cool to do that.
No one knew it was coming.
Oh.
That was a surprise.
You just happened to be, how'd you find out?
Because I think there were like some whispers that there might be an additional release later on, and I stay up till midnight regularly. So that was just a wake.
And so it was really interesting. I really became a Taylor Swift fan
That's
when
what I was going to ask you.
Folklore came out, because I saw her in a new light. I was resistant to when 1989 came out. I was kind of like annoyed that like this country singer was like entering into the pop scene. I'd seen a little bit with Red, and then like 1989 was like full pop, and I was like, what? She can't have everything, is what I thought.
Didn't you end up liking it?
And then I like secretly liked it. And then I was like interested when what's the next album?
Lover. Well, Reputation was the next album.
Reputation. I loved that album.
It's an amazing album.
That I fully accepted Pop Swift. And then Lover, I was kind of like, there were some songs I liked, mostly Endless Summer. What's it called?
Cruel Summer. But there was something about it where I kind of felt like, it doesn't really quite have the same momentum. I remember You Need to Calm Down came out, and I was kind of like, oh, like Taylor is liberal. She does support gay rights. I was like surprised by that just because she had never talked politics before. I know I haven't seen Miss Americana. Apparently it explains everything. And then I moved to LA. I was doing a solo hike to San Gorgonio, and I was driving, and I opened up my Spotify, and this black and white album appears, and it's Taylor Swift's name on it. I was like, what the hell is this? And I play it, and I feel like Taylor's always been known for having promotional singles that come out before the album gets released. Is that right? But this was like a complete, like all new songs. I was like, what? I'm so confused. Like, was there an album that came out in the past that I've never heard before? And I'm listening to this, and it was a very folksy album. And I just remember coming across the song that she does with Bon Iver and just like loving that song. Exile so much. And I just like played through the whole album, and it was like a very beautiful experience. And it really made me appreciate Taylor in a new light, because now not only was she like a country singer-songwriter, she did pop music, and now she was jumping into folk music. And it really made me appreciate the versatility in the artistry,
in
the
her
skill.
artistry. Yeah.
And then, and then so on and so forth. She released Evermore after that, and then Midnights. And Allison and I holds a special place in my heart because we listened to it together. Every song was like an earworm. I could not stop listening to the songs. All my runs were filled with the Midnights album. I was totally converted.
Which I think your experience underscores the intelligence of Taylor Swift's musical career in that, you know, I do think like Lover maybe didn't perform, I don't have the data to back this up, but didn't perform quite as well as her previous albums. And it kind of seemed like maybe she was going the way of other major pop stars where like they popped and then kind of, you know, like still have an audience, but they're not really like of the, like her cultural height had come and gone. Mm-hmm. And then with Folklore and Evermore, I think she like really expanded her fan base to an absurd degree. And then she was able to like ride that tide of like renewed and new interest and release an album that was well received, catapulting her into like, I think you said once, like Beatle territory. Because we now live in a world where like she's probably one of the most famous people around. A
living legend that just like nobody, like I'm sure like, I don't know, like other country pop singers. I mean like Dolly Parton is someone that comes to mind, but like
absolutely,
Dolly never reached this milestone at such a young age too. Like I just feel like she's already reached legend status at such a young age.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of cool to be alive at the same time as that, like just to experience it culturally or to see where it's going to go.
And I mean, she's been ever present, and now we can deep dive. I want to hear your background and your Taylor experience.
So, when I was in high school, Taylor Swift was first releasing her music. She's a few years older than me. I was at a sleepover my freshman year. My friend Kelly Fox, hey Kelly, played the song Our Song. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cute. But I was very like cynical back then. I didn't want to admit how much I wanted a love story of my own. So I pretended I didn't care about these things. And I was like, yeah, it's a fine song, whatever. But then, you know, I had a little sister named Caroline. Hi, Caroline. And I would drive her to school. And you'd think that as the older sister, I would get to control things like what we listen to on the radio and what temperature the car is. But no, I never really
Would you fight back? Or
I'd fight back. But I just like, she's just going to win. You know what I mean? Like, it was all but impossible. But like in the winter, Caroline runs hot. So we'd blast the cold air. But I would be like, it is 29 degrees outside. She'd be like, I don't care, I'm hot. I'm like,
I gotta say, right. I'm Team Caroline with this. I run very hot too, so I'd be blasting the AC.
So anyway, Caroline would play a lot of Taylor Swift in the car. And, you know, I was like, all right, I like this. I enjoy this music.
So at this time, was it Taylor Swift's debut that was playing, or
So debut was my freshman year. Caroline was still in middle school.
Okay.
When I started driving her to school, it was like Fearless and Speak Now, I guess. And so we would sing in the car to the songs, and Caroline's a very good singer, and I'm really not a very good singer. Or I've gotten better because I was shamed in the car. She's like, stop singing, you're messing me up. You know, a lot of that was happening. But anyway, one song in particular I remember really liking, and it's called The Way He Loved Me. Or no, it's called, I'm sorry, one moment while I Google this song.
Oh, I'm so curious.
The Way I Loved You. I was right. Okay, The Way I Loved You. So basically the premise of the song, and that is important for where we're going. In some verses, she's singing about the boyfriend that she has. She uses he pronouns. He is sensible and so incredible. All my single friends are jealous. He says everything I need him to say. My dad likes him, blah, 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 blah. And I feel perfectly fine. And then she'll switch into this other part of the song where she's not using a pronoun. She says, I miss screaming and fighting, kissing in the rain. It's 2 a.m. I'm cursing your name. You're so in love that you act insane. That's the way I loved you. So the idea is that she's got this perfectly fine boyfriend, but there's this other lover that's very passionate and extreme. And that's what she really wants, even though her friends and family wouldn't understand. And I love this song.
Who is this other lover?
Well, exactly. Who is the other lover? I mean, so the idea is that there's this other guy, you know, we could think of like a love triangle a la Twilight, but there's also like a queer reading of this regardless of anyone's identity where she's with this like fine boy, but there's this other more intense love that is calling to her, and perhaps it's like a taboo love or a, you know, forbidden love as emphasized by the pronoun switch. So anyway, I find it funny that I liked that song the best because it is probably one of the gayer ones from back in the day or whatever. In college, a lot of her singles were being played at the bars, but there was a lot of big divide. Like some people thought Taylor Swift was pretty uncool. But at this point, I was like converted. I was like, you know, I'm going to defend her. I do like her. And then after college, that was when 1999 came on the scene and suddenly it became impossible. That probably was her previous height and everyone seemed to be on board pretty much.
Mm.
But the real origin of my interest in queer readings of Taylor Swift's music began when I was in my 20s. Reputation had come out, and I listened to the album, and I felt like, oh, it's good, it's fine, whatever. And then one night, I was at a wine night with all my friends, and we were chatting about Taylor Swift.
I'm sorry, I'm really quick. I'm going to double lock the door. I keep hearing this man, like, screaming.
Really?
Yeah.
Pause. Security check.
He's like, who's talking about Gaylor?
They've come for me. Taylor's team is taking me away. So yeah, I listened to Reputation. I kind of felt like, it's fine. I don't really connect to these songs. And I think at the time I also felt a lot of insecurity because I hadn't had a lot of relationship experience. I was kind of realizing that I might be queer and not wanting that to be true. And also feeling a lot of like, wow, I'm 24, however old I was, 24, 25, and I haven't had like very much romantic experience. That's so strange, blah, blah, blah. All that kind of stuff is going on in the background. Meanwhile, I'm at this wine night with my friends and we're talking about Taylor Swift. And then my one friend says, you know, I have a friend in the music industry who told me that Taylor Swift is going to come out as gay on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine soon. And we were like, what? Taylor Swift? Boy, crazy Taylor Swift? No way, we don't believe you. And she's like, no, trust me, like really, like it's true, I've heard it, it's true, and you should like go listen to Reputation again because it's like pretty gay if you listen to it really closely. And inside when I hear this, I feel like a little bit of relief because as someone who is coming to terms with their own identity, it felt very nice to think this very feminine person who's very popular could share in that identity. I think that's where the attraction of Gaylor Swift comes in, where it's understandable that people want to see themselves in the things that they love. So they read into these things, whether they're true or not, and they gain comfort from them. So I go home and listen to Reputation, and I'm like, all right, there's a lot about secret love in here. There's a lot about hiding, not feeling accepted. I could see it. I see it. I kind of believe it. Like Dancing with Your Hands Tied. All these different songs have like queer subtext. If you want to see it there, I think you can see it there, whether it was intentional or not. So I start to Google this and I find out, and I feel like this is where the speculation part, it's fine to read queer subtext into things, right? But if you're like going online speculating about a celebrity and a male or female lover, it can be invasive. And so I think like there was a lot of information and I was like, okay, I kind of believe this. Now I won't detail, I feel like it's wrong to maybe like
Say the names.
To say the names. I don't know. Maybe not. But anyway, then it became this, there was this like theory online that her next album was going to coincide with this article that was going to come out in Rolling Stone. And sure enough, like the promotion for Lover rolls out. It's full of rainbows. Let me actually go down to my little list here of things that happened. Okay, so for example, Lover's debut coincided with Taylor, as I said, wearing a lot of rainbow. She released the single Me on Lesbian Visibility Day, and the video has a lot of, you know, again, a lot of rainbow.
Mm-hmm. And then Brendan Urie like had come out as like bisexual.
I think he's pansexual.
Pansexual.
So there was that. And then the You Need to Calm Down video comes out, and she's in the video living in a trailer park with numerous LGBTQ icons. She performed at the Stonewall Inn prior to Lover being released. And there were some other things that I don't really...
Well, and then so you showed me a clip.
Oh, yeah.
Where had Miss Americana fallen?
So, okay, I'll get... So there was also... We knew this documentary was coming out.
Okay.
A lot of people were like, maybe this documentary is going to be a coming out documentary. Okay. And in that documentary, there's a scene where they're writing Me, her and Brendan Urie. And she says, in this, there's like a quote where she's like, it will show all the things that make you, you, Brendan. And she's like listed things like musical theater and some other stuff. Then she goes, and then they'll be like, cats, country music, gay pride, and something else. And she's like, all the things that make me, me. Which is kind of a strange thing to say, right? Like, what straight person would say, maybe like being an ally, like, oh, but being a strong ally, but like saying gay pride makes you, you is kind of like odd. But then Joe made a good point when I showed him that he said, you know, like, lots of times pop icons take on that kind of like gay icon status within the LGBTQ community. So maybe she meant that. But she really wasn't an LGBTQ icon at that point in time.
Yeah. And not to already like poke holes in this, but there's also like, I've seen like a few months ago, there was a clip going around from Miss Americana, I assume, where she was talking to her dad about like her, I think there was like some like bill or something that was going to be passed. And she was like, I need to make a stand on my political viewpoints. And it's like really important to me. And I don't care if it hurts my career, I need to do it. And she like gets really emotional. So I could also see like her speaking about gay rights is more about her being like you said, like being an ally. Yeah. Being an ally, being on the right side of history.
Absolutely.
But as you told me then, and as you're telling me now, you do have a very compelling case.
Okay. So from there's this theory on the internet that on June 30th of that year, which I think was 2019, Taylor Swift was going to be wearing this like rainbow dress designed by an artist named Christian Siriano or something like that. And she would come out officially. And to be honest...
Was this... And you read this in an article or...
No. Like on the internet. Oh. Like on Reddit or something like that. And
an article on Reddit.
I was pretty invested. I was like...
It's happening.
I think this is really going to happen. And I needed it at that time because I was closeted, right? But so that you have to look at that through a very emotional lens where I wasn't really thinking very rationally. But I felt it was true. But what happens on June 30th, 2019? Instead of being at the Gay Pride Parade, Taylor goes on Instagram to detail the now infamous sale of her masters. The first step would lead to the success of her re-recordings and the Eras tour, and all of the extreme success she's had today. So there's this like narrative out there, it's a little crazy, that her former manager knew that she was queer. There's probably like clauses in her contract, morality clauses in her contract or whatever. And he knew that like she was going to come out, and so selling her masters then would benefit him, because if she were to come out, people would go back to her old music to look at it and see if what was there, if it aligned with this idea of her being queer.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea was like she wants to get her masters back before she comes out or whatever, because they're of the value, whatever. I don't know, some kind of economic argument that I guess sort of makes sense. But, it's like the thing with conspiracy thinking is like when the thing that's supposed to happen doesn't happen, the goalposts get moved, right? Where it's like, oh, now it's going to happen in the future. So there is like this element of like, okay, it seems like there's conspiracy thinking happening here.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, separating myself from this journey, what happens next is like I go on my own coming out journey. It has nothing to do with Taylor Swift, and I'm able to like separate myself from the idea that she might be queer, with the exception that her music that came next, Folklore and Evermore, has a lot more, like there's songs named after women and things like that. So I could now see her music more like I just appreciate the queer themes in it, but that's what great art does, right? Like anyone can see themselves in it. So anyway, I still hold on to the idea that someone like, if Taylor really were queer, and her music does, I feel like I could go into all the like subtext of like, let's look at each song, and we could do that, but like someone as big and popular, feminine, and universal as Taylor Swift could be queer, because like in our society, it's more acceptable to be queer, but it's not necessarily seen as normal or universal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where it would be so cool for someone like Taylor Swift to come out, because I think it would make a huge impact, but it doesn't make it true. I just think it would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you have examples of artists from like Gen Z, like Billie Eilish came out recently.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, well, isn't it obvious? And then Renee Rapp. It's so interesting with Taylor Swift. It's like, I mean, now we can discuss more recently. News came out where she like her team or somebody came out and they were not happy with that perception.
But and this is where the conspiracy thinking comes back into it. What is interesting is like these rumors have been around for a while, and she's never commented on them, right? And so it was a New York Times op-ed that discussed some of these theories. It got some blowback saying it was like inappropriate to speculate. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because on the one hand, it's like, okay, like I know Kit Connor, the young actor from Heartstopper, was sort of outed because people were theorizing that he wasn't really queer and that it was wrong for him to play the role he was playing. And so he had to come out and be like, I am bisexual, but I wasn't ready to come out. And that's obviously like really wrong that they forced this child to come out when he wasn't ready to come out. But Taylor Swift does have a lot of power, and she also actively courts the public's imagination re her relationships and the way that she uses her public image and her relationships, like to find who the songs are about. She kind of did invite that speculation. So it's odd that she would come out and say like, well, her team would come out and be like, this is like really wrong, because it implies it's only wrong when it's about women and not about men. You know what I mean? So there's like this kind of strange.
Wait, can you elaborate more on that?
Like people are online talking about how her and Travis Kelce might be getting married, or like whatever it might be. And that's the same kind of speculation as she might have dated women in the past. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it's inherent to say it's like, is it bad? Is it quote unquote bad to say that she's gay? Is that the problem? Or is it just the speculation itself?
Yeah.
But it's hard to say that when you are kind of using your image and your relationships to garner publicity.
Right.
So there's and then also in her team statement, they said like no one would ever do this to a man, which is really false, because I mean, look at Harry Styles,
Shawn Mendes.
And the response actually directly talked about Shawn Mendes, which I think was really inappropriate, because he's been quoted saying that it makes him very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Where do you stand now? And what's like the most recent like Taylor Swift news?
I was watching the Grammys with my sister, and we were watching thinking Taylor might announce Reputation. I was home for my grandmother's birthday, so we were in the same space, and we were watching this live, and she wins an award. She gets up there. She seems a little frazzled, I would say, or just like something's going to happen. Something was in the air. And then she kind of said something like, so grateful to the fans, that she was announcing a new album, but it was not Reputation Taylor's version. It was the Tortured Poets Department, which when I heard that for the first time, I was screaming with joy with my sister, but I also in the back of my mind was like, what? Either it's because this album might be some kind of large unpacking of her relationship with Joe Alwyn, probably not painting him in a very good light, or that's what she would like us to think, and it is a misdirect, hard to say, combination. Anyway, and where do I stand? I mean, the music does have a lot of queer subtext. Like, okay, there's one really interesting example would be the song Right Where You Left Me. You know that song?
It's a very good song,
It's a
yes.
song.
From Evermore.
But she talks about, she sings a line you could hear a hairpin drop, which dropping hairpins is actually a way that queer women used to like flag to one another back in the day.
Oh, interesting.
So just like there's a lot of like really rich queer stuff in her music that maybe is accidental, but it seems like it doesn't really matter. The point is I see it in her music and I can't help but like listen to it in a queer way, even if it's not intended to be that way.
I'm interested. Are there other songs you had
Yes.
listed? I want to hear them.
Okay.
Also, quickly, we need to discuss how terrible Taylor Swift is at picking out singles.
She's really bad. Well, maybe she's gotten better. We'll see what the next. I feel like Midnight's was pretty good. Her single.
Midnight's was good, yeah.
But yeah, in the past, I feel like she tried to recreate the blank space, which was an awesome choice in single because because it like played with our perception of her in an ironic way that was really fun and showed us that she was in on the joke. And I think she tried to do that, like repeat that, and it didn't work as well.
I'm constantly shocked by how fast time goes by. Has it already been 10 years since
Yes.
1989? Oh, God. It's so interesting too, just because with queer identity, and now Taylor Swift has been in all of our lives, whether we like it or not. For us, people in our 30s, for like for over half our lives now. And it's just like so amazing that she's continued to be so relevant. And now she's entering into her NFL career too. Like,
We love a sports lady.
crossing between all divides. But yeah, it's really interesting to look at the Gaylor experience, whether or not it's just a conspiracy. But yeah, like I think too, we've talked about in the past just how it's harder for women to like self-identify their sexuality and like the challenge, like if she really is like maybe not even necessarily gay, like if she is like pansexual or bisexual, to feel like she might be like trapped in like this certain image and that she feels like she has to uphold it.
Because she did come from country music, which is very conservative, and it was a very different time.
And so,
Yeah, and I guess I feel like that's the thing I didn't talk about was like the women that people think she's been tied to. But I guess my conclusion from her response was that is inappropriate
yeah.
to talk about the potential female women she's been tied to, but we can talk about that offline. And others that are curious can look online because there's lots of information out there. But yeah, like just to go like through her songs, like, I mean, the obvious ones are the ones that are named after women like Betty and Dorothea. And like with Betty, it's like part of her love triangle songs. Do you know about this?
No.
Okay, so in folklore, there are 3 songs, Betty, Cardigan, and August, that are supposedly fictional, and they're supposed to all relate to one another and be about a love triangle. And in Betty, someone's singing a song to Betty saying, I messed up, I got with this other girl, August, and it was a mistake, but I love you, please take me back, or whatever. And Taylor's singing this song, and it kind of, like, I remember listening to it on folklore, and when I was listening to it, I'm like, this one's, like, really gay. Like, Taylor is singing to a girl named Betty. And then about 3/4 of the song, the third person in the love triangle pulls up in a car and says, James, get in. I remember in my mind being like, oh, James, boy, okay, I see what's going on here. And then Taylor like came out with some quotes being like, oh, like it's really great to like sing from a male perspective. So it's like she seems to be like, saying this was her trying on an identity of being a dude or whatever. But she also said that these characters were named in the song. It references Betty, James, and Inez. Like they're characters at the school. It's like a high school song kind of.
Okay.
And she's been quoted saying like, oh, I put my best friend's kids' names in this song. And it's Blake Lively's children. And Blake Lively has a daughter named James. And Taylor Swift is named after James Taylor. So there is like a queer reading here where like she said, I'm singing from a male perspective, but then you could see maybe James is not a boy, even though she said that.
Right.
And also the name Betty, that kind of goes into like the women that she's been tied to. So I won't say like who that's supposed to be, but there's like speculation that the names she's chosen like refer to these people that she's been with or whatever. Okay, so there's that. And then Dorothea is also sung to a woman. It's not clear who the singer is, but she's singing to a woman. Then there's the song Ivy, which is supposedly inspired by Emily Dickinson and her lover, which was her brother's wife, Sue. And like the story there is, again, like the use of pronouns, not very explicit, but it seems to be about 2 women who are having an affair and they're afraid that one of their husbands is going to find out. And it seems to be set like in the past, like the 1800s or something like that. There's Champagne Problems, which is a song where Taylor, quote unquote, the singer, turns down a proposal and can't explain why. Could be queer, possibly.
Now, are a majority of these songs, do you read them from the latter half of her discography or?
No. So there's also songs from earlier days, like the one I mentioned, The Way I Loved You.
Right.
Then there's like Ours, which is all about like, our love is different, but it's real. People don't understand it. The best thing I've ever had is What Is Ours or something like that.
Right.
Even the song like Love Story. Yes, it's Romeo and Juliet, but like Taylor sings the line, Marry Me, Juliet. Like there's just like, again, this goes down to like literary analysis, right? It's like you can just like Shakespeare, any great artist, you can look at their lyrics and analyze it in different ways, and that's what makes them beautiful. But or Reputation, I feel like, is, if you listen to those songs, just like the theme of Secret Love, or even Cruel Summer.
Yeah. I think you've said it, like with a great artist, a great lyricist, you can kind of, I mean, it's like poetry, right? Like the songs are poetry. You can read into any way you want to, and you can kind of like interpret it the way you want to. I think in everything that I've heard from you, it seems like, I think the greatest chills where I'm like, I am believing this conspiracy is when you were talking about how your friend was, before Lover came out, just like all of the connections to that. I feel like that's like the most interesting part where I like really feel like there might be something to this theory.
Yeah, if you look up more information about her public friendships that seem like they might have been relationships, I think that will add interest to this. But also another example of that was like the dress I mentioned she was supposed to wear. It was like this big rainbow dress. Billy Porter ended up wearing it at the Pride Parade, but the dress was like sewn, like there was like sheer parts, and it was like the wrong skin tone, so it seemed like it maybe wasn't meant for Billy. And then a few years ago, Christian, the designer, like created a TikTok where the dress was in the background, and someone was like speculating about this, and he like was sipping tea in it, and then he deleted the video. So there's like a lot of really weird stuff like that, where if you like Google this stuff, and that's the part where like Taylor's response, and to go back to kind of like the conspiracy thinking of it all, since I've heard this rumor, it's grown and grown and grown so much, right?
There's like whole subreddits dedicated to Gaylor.
Like it's gotten so big. And when Taylor's team went to CNN and said this op-ed was wrong, people shouldn't speculate, this wouldn't happen if I were a man, I feel like suddenly like a lot more people than ever before found out about it. Like, for example, my dad heard it and was like, oh my gosh, Taylor Swift might be gay. What? And like, it's just odd. It's interesting, like, to amplify a rumor. Like, she amplified the rumor by responding. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's like an odd, I don't know what to make of that. It's
to where somebody like your dad is now giving commentary where he's like, I think that she might be. Yeah,
like whereas before he would just think like it was either a crazy idea, or he would think like if Taylor were to say she was gay, he'd be like, she's just doing that for views, or you know what I mean? Like just to be in the cultural conversation. Whereas now I think he'd be like, oh yeah, I remember I heard that on CNN. You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of odd, but that's obviously more conspiracy thinking.
Yeah. Which again, like Taylor does kind of feed off of the speculation and the fact that she had like, it wasn't even like Taylor's team denies these allegations. It's like, was it like,
they use the term associate.
Taylor's associates, which was like, everyone's making fun of that because that even draws more attention to it.
In my like wildest dreams, as Taylor Swift might say, like if this were actually true, right? And she were to come out now or in the future, it'd be kind of like Elton John. I feel like he did a lot in coming out, and now it seems really obvious that he was gay all along. But back then, it maybe wasn't as clear. And maybe like if someone, maybe not Taylor, but someone like Taylor with as much cultural cachet were to do something like that, it would widen our perspective on what it means to be queer and normalize it in a way that perhaps it hasn't been normalized for women in the same.
You're talking about like currently the biggest entertainer in the world right now coming out.
Yeah, which sounds like a little crazy.
So I think that even if it weren't to be Taylor Swift, I feel like there's other representation out there of other artists. But I mean,
you know, it'd be cool. Be like, hey, look at that most popular person.
She's gay.
She's queer. No, I don't know. I'm not speculating. Taylor, I really love you, so I hope you don't get your associate to come after me for sharing my thoughts.
So what does the future hold for Taylor Swift? And this doesn't, you can speak to Gaylor, you can speak to her musical catalog.
Well, what comes next is a new album, and then she's writing a movie. She's directing a movie.
Oh yeah, she was like had meetings with Disney.
Yeah, which
didn't
we? No, but we shouldn't know. But she's, I think, making a movie with Searchlight, or I forget.
Okay,
I don't remember. Well,
a subsidiary of
Disney. No, I don't think it's with Disney. I think it's like another company that meeting I think was a no-go. Well, I don't know.
Well, she just self-produced it like she did.
The Eras Tour. I know. And that is something else, is that like she's so good at making things feel personal, right? And so all these people feel connected to her and show up at her concert.
Okay, so you've seen her 2 times, the Eras Tour.
Yeah.
You're seeing her with your own eyes with all this like Gaylor speculation. The last time you've seen her live was at Reputation?
Before, yeah.
Were there Gaylor rumors during Reputation or not yet?
So they existed. I don't remember if I went to the concert before I heard that rumor or after.
So you went to the Eras Tour in Los Angeles and Philadelphia.
Correct.
Were there any hints during the performances that you're kind of like, hey, this seems a little queer?
Well, to take it back to Reputation.
I mean, is performing in and of itself a little queer?
Definitely inherently queer. But
To want to be seen, a little queer.
during Reputation, and they've taken the movie off of Netflix, but their Reputation movie tour, there's a sequence where she's like dancing with these like big pieces of fabric. They kind of look like wings. I don't really know how to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the movie like pauses and it like comes up with a dedication to this person, Louis Fuller. Taylor Swift's 2018 Reputation tour featured a segment dedicated to Fuller, Louis Fuller, who was a dancer and pioneer of modern dance and theatrical lighting techniques, lived from 1862 to 1928. And it says, during the performance of Dress each night on tour, Dress, another very gay song, side note, it's all about buying a dress just because you want your partner to take it off, right? So that seems like it could be sung to a man, but also feels pretty queer, right? Like, I only bought this dress so you could take it off, women, fashion, clothes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but anyway, back to during a performance of Dress each night on tour, several dancers recreated Fuller's serpentine dance. In the Reputation Stadium Tour concert film on Netflix, after Dress, there is a message showing Taylor's dedication to Fuller. And why this connects back to Gaylor theories is because Louis Fuller, I believe, was a lesbian or a queer woman. And so it's interesting that she chose to highlight this kind of a queer person during her tour. But yeah, I don't remember if I felt like there was anything gay during Eras tour.
Maybe you were a little distracted at the concert.
Well, yeah, I was going to go into this. So during the concert, my wallet was stolen. Yes, by a Swiftie, my wallet was stolen. And I noticed it about 10 minutes into the concert, got very upset. And it did make me reflect on all of this Taylor Swift stuff because I do feel very passionate about Taylor Swift. And part of that does tie back to my own personal journey of kind of like becoming a bigger fan as I realized this, like, I heard about this rumor and was coming out myself. So, you know, I felt very invested in it back then, less invested in it now. But no matter what, I feel like Taylor Swift seems to be aware of these rumors, these readings. She does write songs like Betty that are about women. And it's kind of like the stuff with like Harry Styles. Like, is he the idea of queer baiting? Like, does Taylor want to appeal to the widest audience possible? And is she kind of like
what's interesting
flagging these different communities?
Yeah.
And am I just like giving my wallet literally to Taylor because I think, you know, subconsciously that we're the same when she's like actually a mega celebrity and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Celebrity is such an interesting thing because there's the human and then there's the celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
And so the excitement of Gaylor, it's like a possible window into who the human Taylor Swift is.
But we don't know her.
And it could just be, again, it's just kind of like feeding into this living legend.
Yes. And it's cool. I think it's cool that we can all see ourselves as her. She is profiting off of that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But one should be thoughtful of how invested one gets in a celebrity's life is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah. I just want to speak on another like great memory that I don't know if you remember, but Allison and I went to the Palm Desert over the summer, and it was like
I do remember.
very ungodly hop. It was like such
I thought we were gonna die.
It was
I'm not
such a
gonna
fun
lie.
weekend. We like stayed in this like small, what do you call it? Like a
Trailer.
an in-ground RV.
Yeah.
We did a Taylor Swift power hour.
That was really fun.
Which was really fun because we just got to go through all of Taylor Swift's music videos and kind of like discovered some music videos that we had never seen, songs that she was like featured on.
Yeah, but there was one I had never seen.
There was like a rap song.
And I've seen like basically everything
Yeah,
related to Taylor Swift.
I think like B.O.B., whatever his name, he did that like airplane song. There's one where like Taylor Swift, I think during her like Red era,
Okay.
featured on that song. I'm just basing on like how the color correction was done in that music video. Is a little. We've said like Taylor Swift is, whether you like it or not, she's kind of like a part of our lives, part of the musical tapestry.
Absolutely.
It's fun, and I mean, I guess I can ask that now. Is it dangerous to speculate on someone's sexuality? Is it a special case with Taylor Swift because she like as you said, she kind of like invites that speculation on her relationships?
Well, Brandi Carlile, a queer artist we can get behind, right? For sure.
Yes.
She actually was asked about this recently in an interview. I'm not really quite sure. I just saw the clip. I'm not quite sure like what the context was, but somebody was asking her, like, is she a fan of Taylor Swift? And she's like, oh yeah, absolutely. And she's like, my daughter loves Taylor Swift. And then someone asked her, I don't know if you heard about this, but is it okay to like speculate about so-and-so, like Taylor's sexuality? And Brandi was like, oh, I think you're talking about Taylor. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. Of course it's fine. Like we speculate about people's sexuality every day, like who's dating who. And to say that it's not okay to speculate about queer sexuality makes it seem like it's wrong or dirty, and it's not. And I kind of think that is my, like, if everything were equal, it wouldn't be a big deal. But because it's still unequal and people are afraid of being outed because it's still a little taboo, that's why. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be a problem, but it is. And that's really society's fault.
Yeah.
Be more accepting, people. It's but other people would disagree. I don't know. And then like with kids who are figuring out their lives, I feel like, I don't know. It's hard. There's no right answer, maybe.
Yeah, it's funny because we're just kind of in our own little bubble out here in LA where I feel like I feel like I have like mostly queer friends out here. You and I are both queer. Like we kind of surround ourselves with queer people. Like it feels like it's becoming very like of the norm and not so taboo. But then I think when you and I are both separated and we like go back home and we see just some of our like extended family, we're kind of reminded like, oh, like it's not quite, even in the US, it's not quite accepted as we'd like to think.
Yeah, exactly.
And so to have such, probably the most famous person in the world to announce her queerness would be quite powerful.
I feel like it's like a beautiful like a hero story, right?
Yeah.
Like it would be heroic and fantastic. I feel like a lot of people because I think another part of this is like so many people do feel personally attached to her. So imagine you're like somebody who's grown up with Taylor Swift. You see yourself in her story. You've had you're a straight woman. You're unlucky in love. Taylor's been unlucky in love, and then she comes out and says, "I'm queer." And I haven't shared that part of my life. I mean, not everyone, but some people who are like really invested in a parasocial kind of way might feel like lied to.
That's a really interesting perspective.
So that I'm sure like if any celebrity who feels like they're queer and wasn't able to come out, they might feel like really guilty because of like the way their public image is and how their fans respond to them. And there's that pressure to give people what they want and all of that. So yeah. I just think it's really fascinating. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's just really interesting
Yeah.
to go down the rabbit hole a little bit.
There's been, I think it's called Gaylor Swift is the subreddit.
Yeah.
People have used AI to create audio of her singing songs, professing her love to these specific women.
I did not know that. That's so disturbing. And then on the flip side of that, I did just see Taylor Swift, someone used AI to create explicit porn photos of her and men. So it's like, it sucks. Yeah. You know, those things are wrong.
Yeah. To speculate on someone's sexuality is not to sexually exploit somebody. Those are two different things.
And like, you can be like, oh, wow, like her one song, that made me think of like my like gay experience when I was 19 or whatever. Or like, oh, Taylor and that like women were holding hands. That's interesting. Is she gay? Like that, I feel like it's fine. It's like when you cross the line to being like, you feel like you actually know this person and then are creating images of, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this is such a massive topic. How do we even conclude
Maybe it's
this?
just part one. Maybe Taylor Swift can just be something we talk about sometimes.
Yeah, every now and then we just check in. Tune in for part 2.
Taylor Swift corner.
This is Queer Cinema Catchup, where, as you just heard in our podcast about Gaylor Swift part 1, sometimes we just talk about entertainment, not necessarily related to movie making, but always related to storytelling.
But wait. Actually,
oh my gosh, did you just find out something new? Breaking news.
Part two. No, I was gonna say one thing we can tag, maybe like you can integrate this later. I should have asked you, is there a similar male celebrity?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure this is common with a lot of queer people. It's like every like man that I find like slightly attractive, I'm like, are they gay? Are they gay? Go to the personal life section of their Wikipedia.
Yes, that is the universal queer experience.
Research.
Are they like me?
There's an artist though that I like really liked recently, who I think recently did come out as queer.
Exciting.
His name is Love, L-A-U-V. I think that's how you pronounce
Love.
it.
Oh, I've listened to some of Love's stuff, I think.
And he has like really beautiful music, and he actually does identify as queer. So I feel like, especially, I keep touting Gen Z. I feel like are really
they are definitely
breaking ground. And it's just really exciting to see with every new generation, there are more open-minded people and more acceptance. And
Absolutely.
I hope that continues. And I'm excited to see the influence that Taylor Swift has on future artistry and future acceptance.
Same.
Please continue to check into our weekly podcast.
And send us emails about your thoughts.
All right. That is Queer Cinema Catchup. Goodbye.
Adios. Oh no, I didn't want to do that. Last time I was very like drawn to saying adios, but I was like, no, I can't do that. Goodbye. Thank
Adios.
you.